I stared at the text message on my phone for what felt like an hour, though it was probably only 30 seconds. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the screen steady. "So your mom was robbed while bringing me the money you owed? Who do you think I am?" Those words from Derek weren't a question. They were a verdict, and I had no defense. "My name is Ashley, and I'm 24 years old. I work as an accountant at Brenner and Associates, a mid-sized firm in Millbrook, Pennsylvania, one of those old industrial towns where the steel mills shut down in the 90s and never quite recovered. The brick buildings downtown are mostly empty now, their windows papered over or smashed. But the neighborhoods where people actually live are still here, still hanging on. That's where Derek and I had built something we thought was solid. 3 years ago, when we'd first met at a happy hour near the courthouse, I'd felt like I was finally getting my life right. I was coming out of a rough patch, bad credit from my early 20s, some stupid decisions with a guy who wasn't worth my time, and Derek seemed like proof that I was moving forward. He was charming in that effortless way some men have, taller than me by a head, with dark hair that always looked like he'd just run his hand through it. He worked in logistics for a distribution company, made decent money, had his own apartment in a converted warehouse space on the edge of downtown. We moved in together after about 8 months of dating. I know that sounds fast, but it felt right at the time. The apartment was his, a one-bedroom in an old brick building on Sycamore Street. He helped me pack up my stuff from the place I'd been renting with 2 roommates. I remember feeling so proud that morning, like I was finally adult enough to have this kind of relationship, this kind of life. That July, 3 years into our relationship, the heat was suffocating. The kind of humidity that makes the streets of Millbrook feel like they're underwater. The air conditioning in our apartment barely worked. Derek said he'd call the landlord about it, but he kept not getting around to it. I'd stopped asking him to make the calls about 6 months prior, if I'm being honest. It was easier to just do things myself. I'd noticed small things shifting over the past year. Derek wasn't exactly pulling his weight financially anymore. He'd taken a new job that paid slightly less, he said. Just temporary, he'd promised. But temporary had a way of becoming permanent. He was still going out with his friends most weekends, still ordering expensive takeout without asking if we could afford it. Meanwhile, I was the one keeping track of the bills, the utilities, the rent, the internet. The spreadsheets I built at work were nothing compared to the mental math I was constantly doing at home. My mom, Patricia, had called me that humid July morning. She and my dad had gotten divorced when I was 18, and she'd been struggling financially ever since. She lived about 40 minutes away in Lancaster, worked part-time at a dental office. She was always short on money, and I was always the one trying to help when I could. "Your father's property taxes are due next month," she'd said without preamble. My dad was remarried and living out of state, but he still owned a small house in Lancaster that he rented out. He was supposed to send my mom money to cover it, but he was behind. He always was. "I'm going to have to cover it myself if he doesn't send it soon." I'd felt that familiar tightness in my chest, the feeling of being responsible for people who couldn't quite keep their own lives together. "How much?" I'd asked. $2,000, she'd said quietly. "I know that's a lot, honey. I wouldn't ask if—" "It's okay, Mom, I'll figure it out." And that was my mistake. Or maybe it was one of many mistakes I was already making, and that one just happened to be the last one that mattered. Derek and I had been fighting more. Nothing dramatic, nothing with screaming or thrown dishes, just the slow, grinding friction of 2 people who were no longer moving in the same direction. He'd become distant. He'd stay late at work, then hit bars with colleagues I'd never met. He'd check his phone constantly, always angling it away from me. I told myself I was being paranoid, that this was what normal long-term relationships were like. I should have asked him about the money first. I should have sat down at our kitchen table and had a real conversation about what we could and couldn't afford. But I didn't. Instead, I opened a line of credit. Just a small one. $2,500. My credit score wasn't great, but it was decent enough, and I had the job at Brenner and Associates. The application was approved within 2 days. I never told Derek about it. I gave the money to my mom on a Sunday afternoon when she came to visit. We'd sat in our living room, and she'd hugged me tight, thanking me over and over. She'd promised to pay me back as soon as Dad sent his contribution. She'd never actually pay me back, But I didn't know that yet. What I didn't know was that Derek had already started borrowing money from someone. A lot of money. It wasn't until 2 weeks later that I really started to understand what was happening. I came home from work on a Thursday evening. I remembered because I'd had to stay late to finish a client's quarterly review, and Derek was already there, pacing in our living room. His jaw was tight. His knuckles were white. "We need to talk," he said. Those words, those 4 words that have ended more relationships than any others in human history. "What's wrong?" I asked, setting my purse down. My heart was already accelerating, already sensing danger the way an animal senses a predator. "I need money," he said. "Soon. Like within the next week." "What do you mean you need money? For what?" He didn't answer immediately. He walked to the window and looked out at Sycamore Street below, where the summer light was just starting to fade. "I made some investments," he finally said. "They didn't work out the way I expected." "What kind of investments?" "The kind I don't want to get into right now." I felt something cold slide down my spine. This was the first time Derek had ever been truly evasive with me about money. We didn't have the best financial situation, but we'd always been honest about it. "Derek, I'm not going to help you with anything until you tell me what's actually going on." He turned to look at me, and for just a moment I saw something in his face that I'd never seen before. Fear. Raw, naked fear. "I borrowed money," he said quietly, "from a guy I know from the gym, and things didn't go the way we planned, and now—" "How much?" $12,000. The room seemed to tilt. $12,000. From who? What was it for? "Does it matter?" he snapped. "The point is, he wants it back, and he's not the kind of guy who's going to be patient about it." That was the moment everything started to change. That was the beginning of what I would later understand was the slow, methodical financial suffocation that would define the next 18 months of my life. But I didn't know that yet. I just knew that I was terrified, and my boyfriend was asking me to fix something he'd broken. I didn't say no. That was my second mistake. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed next to Derek, listening to him snore, and felt like I was lying next to a stranger. My mind kept cycling through the same thought. $12,000. Where had it come from? Who was this guy from the gym? And what did "not the kind of guy who's going to be patient about it" actually mean? By morning, I decided not to ask any more questions. Instead, I did what I'd always done when things got hard. I tried to fix it myself. I called in sick to work. I told Brenner and Associates I had a migraine. It wasn't a complete lie. My head was pounding. My jaw clenched so tight I could barely chew. I spent the day on my laptop, pulling together every financial option I could think of. A second line of credit, a personal loan. I even looked at cashing out part of my 401k, though I knew the penalties would be brutal. By noon, I'd qualified for another $4,000 in credit. It wasn't enough, but it was something. I transferred it to Derek's account without telling him. He'd figure it out. He always did. Mom called that afternoon. "How are you doing, honey?" she asked. Her voice had that careful quality it got when she was worried about me. "I'm fine, Mom. Just a headache." "You sound stressed." "I'm okay." There was a pause. I could picture her sitting in her living room in Lancaster, probably folding laundry or doing something with her hands while we talked. That was what my mom did when she was anxious. She had to be moving. "Is everything all right with Derek?" she asked. The question landed like a punch. I almost told her right then. I almost said, "Mom, he borrowed $12,000 from someone, and I don't know what it's for, and I'm terrified." But I didn't. "Everything's fine," I said, "really." I didn't hear from Derek all day. He texted me at 5 o'clock. "Working late, don't wait up." He didn't come home until after midnight. I was still awake, sitting in the dark living room with my laptop, scrolling through Reddit threads about financial abuse and predatory lending. It was 3 in the morning before I realized what I was doing and closed the computer. The next 2 weeks were a blur of him being gone and me being awake. I'd go to work, come home, pay bills, and lie in bed wondering what he was doing, who he was seeing, whether this was about money at all, or whether the money was just the symptom of something bigger, something that had nothing to do with me. I did what I could. I picked up extra hours at Brenner and Associates. I asked my manager, Patricia, different Patricia, confusingly, if there was any chance of a raise. She said she'd look into it, but her tone made it clear the answer was no. I cut my own expenses down to almost nothing. I stopped buying lunch, stopped going out, stopped doing anything that cost money. Derek didn't ask me where I got the extra $4,000. He just thanked me once, quickly, like he was embarrassed, and then we never spoke about it again. But the guy from the gym apparently wasn't satisfied. It was a Saturday morning in late August when my mom called me, and I could hear the fear in her voice before she even spoke. "Ashley, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." "Mom, what's wrong?" "I was coming to see you. I had the money you asked for, the $2,000 you said Derek needed, and I was bringing it, and I got robbed. Someone just grabbed my purse right out of my car in the parking lot of the gas station on Route 30. I'm okay physically, but..." The words weren't processing. I couldn't make sense of them. "Wait, what money? I never asked you for money." There was silence on the other end of the line. "Derek called me," my mom said slowly. 3 days ago. He said you guys were in a tight spot and needed help. He asked if I could bring $2,000 cash to the apartment. He said you didn't want to tell me, but he felt terrible asking, and he wanted to make sure your rent got paid." My stomach dropped so far I thought I might be sick. "Mom, Derek called you?" He was very polite about it. He said he didn't want to burden you with knowing that he'd asked, but he hoped I could help. He said he'd pay me back as soon as he could. I couldn't breathe. I was standing in the kitchen of our apartment, my free hand gripping the counter so hard my knuckles turned white. "Are you sure it was really him?" I asked, even though I knew it was. Of course it was. He knew about your dad's property taxes. He knew about the dental office where I work. It was definitely him, sweetheart. After we hung up, I sat on the kitchen floor for 20 minutes without moving. Derek had called my mother and manipulated her into bringing cash to our apartment. Cash that she didn't have. Cash that got stolen because she was driving around with $2,000 in her purse because my boyfriend had lied to her. When Derek came home that evening, I was waiting for him. I'd spent the entire afternoon working myself into a state of cold fury. I was past angry. I was in that dangerous place where emotion crystallizes into something sharp and focused. "Your mom got robbed," he said before I could even open my mouth. He'd clearly already heard. "That's insane. Is she okay?" "She was bringing you $2,000, I said quietly. "Money that you asked her for. Money that you told her was for our rent." Derek's face went blank. "I don't know what you're talking about." "She told me you called her 3 days ago. You manipulated her into..." "I did not manipulate anyone," he said, and his voice had taken on that defensive edge I'd keep to recognize. "I asked for help. There's nothing wrong with that." "You lied to her. You told her it was for rent. You told her not to tell me." "Because I knew you'd react exactly like this," he snapped. "I knew you'd make it into some huge thing instead of just understanding that we're in a difficult situation, and sometimes people need help. We are not in a difficult situation because of me, Derek. We are in a difficult situation because you borrowed $12,000 from someone, and you won't even tell me who or what for." He turned away from me and walked into the bedroom, slamming the door. I stood in the living room alone, shaking. This was the moment, I would realize later, when something shifted inside me. Not all at once. I wasn't suddenly strong or suddenly clear, but something small and stubborn started to harden in my chest. Some tiny seed of self-preservation that had been dormant began to wake up. I pulled out my phone and texted my mom. "I'm coming over tomorrow. We need to talk about what's really going on." Then I opened my laptop and did something I should have done weeks ago. I pulled Derek's name up on the county court database. I searched for lawsuits, liens, anything that might tell me who he owed money to. And that's when I found it. A civil judgment filed 6 months ago. Derek's name, clear as day. The amount, $11,800. The plaintiff, a man named Marcus Chen. I sat staring at the screen, my hands shaking. Marcus Chen, the guy from the gym. It had to be. And Derek didn't just owe him money. A judge had already ruled against him. which meant Derek had probably ignored an initial lawsuit, ignored demands, ignored everything, until Marcus had no choice but to take him to court. And now Marcus was apparently the kind of person who sent people to collect money by targeting the families of people who owed him. I called my mom back. "Mom, listen to me. I need you to tell me exactly what the man who robbed you looked like. Everything you can remember." My mom described him in careful detail. Medium height, maybe 5'10", dark jacket despite the heat, a scar above his left eyebrow. She'd been terrified, but her mind had cataloged the details, the way a mind does when it's running on pure adrenaline. "Did he say anything?" I asked her. "He just grabbed the purse and ran. There was another guy waiting in a car. I didn't see his face clearly, but he was bigger, built. 2 guys, professional. That changed things." I hung up with my mom and sat in complete silence for a long time. Then I did something I'd been avoiding for weeks. I called Marcus Chen. The number was in the court filing. I found it by searching the case number and digging through the legal documents. My hands were shaking as I dialed. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Yeah? This is Ashley, Derek's girlfriend. I need to talk to you about what's going on." There was a long pause. "I don't know what you're talking about. You sent someone to rob my mother. She was bringing money that Derek owed you. My mother, who had nothing to do with any of this." "I don't know anything about that," he said, but his voice had changed. There was something underneath it now, uncertainty. "My mother is 62 years old. She works part-time at a dental office in Lancaster. She lives on barely $30,000 a year. And Derek manipulated her into being a cash courier because he's a coward who won't face his own problems." "Listen, I'm not finished," I cut him off. "I've been to the courthouse. I saw the judgment. $11,800. Derek owes you that. Not my mother, not me, Derek. And if anything happens to my mother because of this, I'm going to the police with her statement, with the court documents, with everything. And I'm going to make sure they understand that you've expanded this beyond a civil debt into something criminal." I was shaking. I could feel my heart hammering in my chest, but my voice was steady. "Derek is the one who owes you, so you're going to stop coming after my family, and you're going to come after him. And if you can't handle collecting your own debts like an adult, then maybe you shouldn't be lending money in the first place." I hung up before he could respond. That night, I sat Derek down. I'd printed everything out, the court documents, the details of my mom's robbery, the text records of him calling her, everything. "I know about Marcus Chen," I said. "I know about the $12,000. I know you called my mother and lied to her. I know someone robbed her because of you." Derek's face went white. "Ashley, I can explain." "No, you can't. There's nothing to explain. You did it or you didn't, and you did. What you're going to do now is give me the money to repay Marcus Chen, and then you're going to leave this apartment." "What? No, I'm not." "You have 48 hours. I'm going to the police tomorrow with my mother's statement. I'm filing a report, and I'm telling them exactly who told her to bring that money and why. You can either handle this like an adult, or you can deal with the consequences." He tried to argue. He tried to tell me that I was overreacting, that Marcus wouldn't actually do anything, that this would blow over. But I wasn't listening anymore. I'd crossed some threshold inside myself. The part of me that had been trying to fix everything, trying to make things work, trying to save him, that part was gone. I called my mother back and told her what I'd done. She cried. She said she was sorry, that she should have questioned him more, that she shouldn't have been so easily convinced. I told her it wasn't her fault. It was Derek's. It was all Derek's. The next morning, I went to the Millbrook Police Department and filed a report. The officer who took my statement was a woman named Detective Sarah Kowalski. She was probably in her 50s, with gray-streaked hair, and the kind of tired, knowing expression that came from years of hearing people's worst moments. I brought copies of everything: the court documents, the messages between Derek and my mother, the details of the robbery. My mother came with me and gave her own statement. "We'll need to look into this," Detective Kowalski said, "but I want you to understand that the connection between Derek and the robbery, that's not automatic. We'd have to prove that he specifically arranged for someone to take the money. He manipulated her into being a cash courier, I said. That's the arrangement. It's suggestive, she agreed, but we'll need to talk to Derek, to Marcus Chen, to figure out what actually happened. Derek left the apartment that same evening while I was at work. He took some clothes, some electronics, and left a note on the kitchen table that said, "I'm sorry, I'll figure this out." He didn't figure it out. What happened instead was that the police started investigating. They talked to Derek, who apparently invoked his right to an attorney immediately. They talked to Marcus Chen, who denied everything. They looked at the robbery footage from the gas station on Route 30, which showed a man matching the description my mother had given grabbing her purse. But the footage didn't show Derek or Marcus. It showed someone else entirely. It took 3 weeks for them to identify the robber. His name was Kevin Tarver, and he had a record: breaking and entering, assault, armed robbery. He'd been arrested 4 times in the past 8 years. When the police brought him in for questioning about my mother's purse, he initially denied it. But then they showed him the footage and the description, and something shifted. He admitted to the robbery. He said a man had paid him $500 to grab a purse from a woman in the parking lot at the Route 30 gas station on that specific day. The man had told him the woman would have cash in the purse. That was all he knew. The man who'd hired him, according to Kevin's statement, was someone he'd met in a bar downtown, a guy named Marcus. That was enough to bring Marcus back in for questioning, and this time, when Detective Kowalski confronted him with Kevin's statement, something in his demeanor cracked. He admitted it. Not all of it at first, but eventually the whole thing came out. Derek had called him in late August, desperate. He'd said he could get $2,000 in cash very soon if Marcus would just give him a few more days. Marcus had been waiting for his judgment to be satisfied for months. He was impatient. He was angry. Derek had suggested that if Marcus sent someone to intercept the money, he could blame the robbery on random chance. He'd get the insurance payout, or he'd use his mother-in-law's insurance, or he'd claim it as a loss. Either way, he'd have the cash to repay Marcus without having to admit where it came from. It was a fraud scheme. Derek hadn't just borrowed money and failed to repay it. He'd orchestrated a robbery to try to cover his tracks. The police arrested Derek on charges of conspiracy to commit robbery. They arrested Marcus Chen on charges of arranging the robbery. They arrested Kevin Tarver on charges of robbery and conspiracy. And I got a call from Detective Kowalski telling me what had happened. I sat in my apartment, Derek's apartment technically, but he wouldn't be coming back, and I let myself cry for the first time since the whole thing had started. Not sad tears, angry tears, frustrated tears, tears of relief that I didn't have to keep pretending everything was okay. My mom came over that night. We sat on the couch and ordered Thai food, and she held my hand. "I'm so sorry," she said. "I'm so sorry I brought that money. I'm so sorry I let him—" "Mom, stop. You didn't do anything wrong. He lied to you. He's good at lying." "Are you okay?" she asked. I thought about that question. Was I okay? I just found out that the man I'd been living with for 3 years had orchestrated a robbery. I'd lost the apartment because I couldn't afford the rent on my own. I was carrying credit card debt and a line of credit that I'd taken out to pay for his mistakes. My credit score had tanked. My savings were gone. But I'd also just realized that I was strong enough to face it, that I could walk into a police station and tell the truth, that I could end a relationship that was destroying me, that I didn't need to keep trying to fix someone else's life while I was drowning in my own. "I will be," I said. Derek's trial happened 4 months later in December. I attended every single day. I sat in the back of the courtroom and watched my boyfriend, my ex-boyfriend, sit at the defense table with his attorney, looking smaller and more pathetic with each passing day. The prosecution's case was straightforward. Derek had called Marcus Chen multiple times in the weeks before the robbery. They had phone records. Derek had told Marcus that his mother-in-law would be bringing cash. He'd given Marcus the date and time and location. He'd even mentioned the amount, $2,000. Derek's attorney argued that Derek hadn't known what would happen, that he was just asking for help, that Marcus had taken things too far without Derek's consent. It was a weak argument, and the jury didn't buy it. They found Derek guilty of conspiracy to commit robbery and fraud. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Marcus Chen got 4 years. Kevin Tarver got 5. When the verdict was read, I felt something settle inside my chest. Not satisfaction exactly, not happiness, but a sense of closure, a sense that the universe had tilted back toward something resembling justice. Derek's mother called me after the trial. His name was Richard, and he was a retired accountant who lived in Philadelphia. He asked if we could meet for coffee. I almost said no, but something made me agree. We met at a coffee shop downtown, and he sat across from me with a cup of black coffee and a face full of shame. "I want you to know that I'm sorry," he said, "for what my son did, for how he treated you." "You don't need to apologize for him," I said. "He made his choices." "I know, but he's my son, and I failed him somehow. I should have seen what was happening. I should have helped him before it got to this point." I softened a little. He seemed genuinely devastated. "He lied to a lot of people," I said. "You couldn't have known." We talked for an hour. He told me about Derek's childhood, about how Derek had always been the one who wanted more than he could have, who was always reaching for things just out of his grasp. He told me that Derek had been in therapy for a while, that he'd struggled with impulse control and with accepting reality. None of it excused what Derek had done, but it helped me understand that he wasn't a monster. He was just a person who'd made catastrophically bad decisions and was now paying the price for them. I moved out of the apartment that winter. My mom helped me find a small one-bedroom in Lancaster, closer to where she lived. The rent was less than half what I'd been paying in Derek's place. I got a second job, weekend work doing taxes for a local CPA firm. Within 6 months, I'd paid off the credit card debt. Within a year, I'd paid off the line of credit. It took 3 years, but I got my credit score back to where it had been before Derek. Then I kept pushing it higher. I went back to Brenner and Associates and asked for a meeting with Patricia, my manager. I told her that I'd been taking on extra responsibilities without extra pay, that I'd earned a raise, and that I was looking at other job opportunities if they couldn't accommodate that. She gave me the raise. I stayed at Brenner and Associates for 4 more years, then moved to a larger firm in Philadelphia, where I made significantly more money. I bought a small house with my mother. We went in on it together, splitting the down payment and the mortgage. It's nothing fancy, just a 3-bedroom Cape Cod with a yard, but it's ours. My mom retired from the dental office 2 years ago. She volunteers now, does yoga classes, has a book club. She's happier than I've ever seen her. Derek got out of prison last year. He's living with his father in Philadelphia, working at a warehouse, trying to rebuild his life. I occasionally see him tagged in Facebook posts from mutual friends. He looks smaller, older. I don't feel anything when I see his name anymore. Not anger, not pain, just a kind of neutral acknowledgement that he existed, and then he left, and I moved on. The truth about that text message, "So your mom was robbed while bringing me the money you owed. Who do you think I am?" is that it was the moment everything changed.